I lost $20,000 in one day. Not because of the market, but because I couldn't lose like a winner. That's when I realized Best Loser Wins isn't just a book, it's a wake-up call. Here's what really happened and why it changed everything. I remember the sound, not the market noise, but that cold, metallic click when I pressed close position. It was like pulling a trigger on myself. That day, I lost $20,000. Not over weeks, not over a bad month, in just a few hours. And it wasn't a flash crash, it wasn't a black swan, it was me. I didn't honor my stop, I didn't follow my plan, I watched a losing trade spiral, and I just sat there, frozen, hoping, praying, paralyzed by the one thing no one teaches you in trading: how to lose. See, every trading course talks about risk management. They teach you indicators, patterns, entries. They tell you to cut losses fast, but they never prepare you for the moment your gut turns to stone, when your brain screams, maybe it'll bounce. They don't teach you how it feels to betray yourself. And that's where I met the real market. Not the chart, not the setup, the battlefield inside my head. That's when I found the book Best Loser Wins by Tom Hougaard. And for the first time, I felt seen, exposed, understood. The best loser wins, he wrote, because most traders lose to avoid losing. I had to sit with that for days, because it made me realize something brutal. I didn't have a system problem. I had a self-sabotage problem. And the person draining my account wasn't the market, it was me. But here's the thing, that $20,000 loss, it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was the best, because it forced me to confront the truth. If you don't learn how to lose well, you'll never survive long enough to win big. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what really happened, what I felt, what I learned, and how that single painful day rewired my trading mindset forever. Because if you've ever felt stuck, frustrated, sabotaged by your own hands, I promise you, this story is your mirror. And by the end of it, you'll see why losing $20,000 might be the most profitable lesson you'll ever hear. Let's begin. I still remember the setup. It was one of those high conviction trades, the kind that makes you feel like you finally cracked the code. S&P futures had been consolidating in a tight range all morning. The volume was building, momentum was leaning to the upside. Every indicator, every candle, every fiber in my body told me, this is it. I sized up, bigger than usual, because this was the one. And for a few minutes it was. The price broke out. It moved in my favor. Green P&L flashed across my screen. My breathing steadied. I even allowed myself a smirk. Then it stalled. Hesitation, a tiny retrace. No big deal. I'd seen this before. Normal price action, I told myself, just a pullback. But then the pullback deepened. My green turned to gray, then red. Still, I didn't flinch. It'll come back. That's when the market did what it always does to overconfident traders. It accelerated in the opposite direction. My stop, it was there, preset, but I didn't let it trigger. I moved it just a bit, then a bit more. Eventually, I removed it altogether. Because in that moment, I didn't want to lose. And right there, that was the moment the trade stopped being a trade and became a personal battle, not against the market, but against myself. I want you to understand this clearly. It wasn't a $20,000 loss because the market tricked me. It wasn't some massive spike or unexpected news. It was me choosing, second by second, to ignore my own rules. And yet, as the loss mounted, as the blood drained from my face, as the price blew past my original stop and kept falling, I couldn't click the button. I physically couldn't exit. I sat there, hand frozen over the mouse, watching the red numbers climb like flames engulfing a house. My house. People talk about fight or flight, but in trading there's a third response: freeze. That's what I did. I froze. Not because I didn't know better, but because part of me still believed, irrationally, desperately, that hope was a strategy. You see, losing that much money wasn't the real pain. The real pain was realizing that I betrayed myself. I had a plan. I broke it. I had a system. I overrode it. I had a rule. I crushed it. And worst of all, I didn't just lose the trade. I lost trust in myself. When it was finally over, when I couldn't take the pain anymore, I clicked out of the trade, realized I was down nearly $20,000, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not tears, not even shock, just numb. Like something inside had died, and in a way it had. because the version of me that thought he could outsmart discipline, that thought he was too clever to lose, was gone. I stepped away from the screen, walked into the bathroom, looked into the mirror, and for the first time in my trading career, I asked myself a terrifying question. Do I even deserve to do this? That night, I didn't open any charts, didn't watch any recaps, didn't read any market analysis. I sat in silence with one book beside me, Tom Hougaard's Best Loser Wins. I had read it before, but this time I devoured it. Every page hit like a punch to the gut. You must learn to embrace discomfort, to train your nervous system to stay calm when your brain wants to run. That sentence cracked something open in me, because I realized I didn't have a trading problem. I had a psychology problem. That loss, it was no longer just a number, it was a mirror. It showed me who I really was under pressure, not a disciplined trader, not a professional, but a person afraid of pain, afraid of looking stupid, afraid of being wrong. I thought trading was about being smart, but that day taught me something far more important. Trading is about being honest. Honest about who you are, honest about what you fear, honest enough to accept loss without losing yourself. So yes, that trade broke me. It shattered the illusion of control I thought I had. It exposed the weak spots I tried to hide. It burned through my pride like fire through paper, but it also gave me something priceless. It woke me up, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. In the next part, I'll tell you what I discovered about winning traders and why most of what you believe about success in the markets is dead wrong. The hidden truth behind winning traders. After the $20,000 loss and a night staring into the void, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. Not peace, but awareness. For the first time, I didn't rush to open charts. I didn't check headlines. I sat with my coffee, staring at the floor, and one question echoed in my head. If winning traders don't win by being right, then how do they win? That's when I went back to Tom Hougaard's book, not just to read it, but to study it. There's a part where Tom says, "The best traders are not the best analysts. They're the ones most willing to be uncomfortable." Let that sink in. Not the smartest, not the fastest, not the most informed, but the ones who can sit in pain without reacting. That shattered everything I thought I knew about success in trading. I used to think winners had some secret insight, a special pattern, a sixth sense, a magic system. But now I realized the real secret weapon of consistent traders isn't in their charts, it's in their nervous system. I started researching trader psychology more deeply. I watched interviews, read journals, talked to pros, and one theme kept coming back. Winning traders are masters of discomfort. They don't avoid fear, they work with it. They don't pretend losses don't hurt. They train themselves to respond, not react. They're not trying to eliminate uncertainty. They've made peace with it. And that's when I understood why most traders fail. It's not because their system sucks. It's because they can't stay in the fire long enough to let it work. Let me ask you something. How many times have you backtested a strategy, seen it work, but then ditched it after 2 losing trades? How many times have you moved your stop because you felt like the market would bounce? How often do you cut winners too early because you're afraid of losing the little profit you made? That's not strategy, that's emotion disguised as logic, and it's killing your edge. Tom calls this the mental stop loss. It's when your brain bails out long before your system says to, and it happens because you haven't trained for pain. Most traders spend 90% of their time trying to improve their analysis. But winning has nothing to do with better charts, and everything to do with emotional conditioning. I learned this the hard way when I tried to trade again after the big loss. I told myself I was ready. New rules, tighter risk, better setup. But the moment the first trade turned red, my chest tightened, my palms got sweaty, and without even thinking, I closed the trade for a small loss, well before my stop. I couldn't take the heat. Even though I knew the setup was solid, I didn't have the emotional muscle to hold it. And that's when it hit me. It's not enough to have a system. You have to train yourself to execute it under stress. That's what separates amateurs from professionals. Professionals don't think about what to do in the moment. They've trained their response in advance. They're like athletes. When pressure hits, they don't improvise. They default to training. The average trader, though, They default to emotion, and emotion will betray you. It will whisper sweet lies in your ear. Just wait a little longer. Maybe it'll reverse. You can make it back. But here's the truth. If you want to win, you have to learn how to lose right. That's the brutal truth I learned from Tom's book. The best loser wins, because the trader who can take loss after loss without spiraling into fear, ego, revenge, or denial, that trader becomes unstoppable. They don't panic. They don't force trades. They don't blow up accounts. They survive. And in surviving, they outlast 95% of the competition. And here's another truth you won't like. Most successful traders you see online, they're not necessarily rich because of trading. They're good at looking successful. But real winners, they're often invisible. They're the quiet ones, showing up every day, risking small, following their plan, embracing boredom, tolerating discomfort. They're not chasing dopamine highs. They're executing routines. So if you're chasing that holy grail setup, that magical formula to beat the market, you're looking in the wrong place. Because the real battle isn't on the chart. It's inside you. Your triggers, your patterns, your pain tolerance. Winning traders aren't the smartest. They're the most emotionally resilient. They lose better than anyone else, and that's why they win. In the next part, I'll tell you why discipline alone isn't enough, and what happens when willpower fails you at the worst possible time. And it will fail you unless you know what to do next. Why discipline isn't enough. People love to say it. Trading is all about discipline. Just stick to your rules, follow your system. And they're right, on the surface. But here's the truth no one tells you. Discipline sounds easy until you're under fire. Let me paint a picture for you. You're in a trade. It's going against you, not catastrophically, just slowly bleeding. You followed your setup. You know your stop is 15% below entry. You know the plan. But your heart starts racing. Your breath shortens. Your stomach knots up like a fist. And your brain starts talking. Should I get out early? What if it breaks lower? I can always re-enter. I don't want to lose this much. That's not strategy. That's survival mode. In those moments, you're no longer using your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. You've been hijacked. The amygdala, your emotional alarm system, takes over. And suddenly, it's not about trading anymore. It's about escaping discomfort. That's when discipline dies. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to protect you. This is why discipline by itself isn't enough, because willpower melts under emotional pressure. It's like trying to stop a flood with duct tape. You can have all the right rules, but if you haven't trained your nervous system to stay calm under pressure, you'll abandon them the moment things get uncomfortable. I know this because I lived it. After reading Best Loser Wins, I created a new set of trading rules. Clear, logical, tested, and for a few days, it worked. Then came the day the market turned violent. Fast reversals, whipsaws, volatility spikes. I took a hit, then another. Then I hesitated, then I deviated. Within hours, I was breaking rules I'd sworn never to touch again. Why? Because my nervous system hadn't caught up with my intentions. Tom Hougaard talks about this in the book. You can't trade your way out of emotional immaturity. You have to train yourself. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted a checklist, a template, a formula. But what I needed was emotional conditioning. Because real discipline doesn't come from willpower. It comes from repetition under pressure. Just like a soldier doesn't learn to stay calm in combat by reading about war, they train in chaos until it becomes normal. So I started doing something different. Every morning before the market opened, I did breathing exercises. Not to feel good, but to lower my baseline stress response. I meditated, I journaled my fears, I visualized red trades going against me, and practiced staying calm. At first, it felt silly, like it had nothing to do with trading, but then something shifted. The next time a trade went red, I didn't panic. My hands didn't shake, my mind didn't scream. I just followed the plan. Not because I'm disciplined, but because I'd rewired my response. Here's the big lie in trading. You think you need to be strong. What you really need is to be regulated. Emotions will come, fear will knock, ego will whisper. But when your nervous system is stable, you don't chase, you don't flinch, you observe, and then you act, not react. Let me ask you something. How many times have you blown a trade, not because your system failed, but because you couldn't follow it when it mattered most? That's not a strategy problem. That's a nervous system problem. And most traders never address it. They add more indicators, more filters, more complexity. But what they really need is simplicity under stress. Discipline is not about force. It's about creating a system inside yourself that makes the right action feel natural. That's how pro traders do it. They're not superhuman. They're trained. They've rehearsed discomfort so many times that staying in the fire feels normal. They've built what I now call emotional muscle memory. And if you don't have it, you'll flinch, you'll fold, you'll fail, no matter how good your system is. So the next time someone tells you, just be disciplined, ask them this: disciplined how? At what level of stress? For how long? Under what triggers? Because without emotional training, discipline is just theory. And markets don't reward theory. They reward execution, especially when it hurts the most. In the next part, I'll reveal the silent saboteur hiding inside every trader and why your identity may be the real reason you keep blowing up. Identity crisis, the real saboteur. After weeks of rebuilding, journaling, breathing, and slowly regaining composure, I thought I had made real progress. And in many ways, I had. My rules were tighter, my execution was cleaner, I was no longer making impulsive trades. But then something happened. I had a winning streak. 4 green trades in a row, followed by 2 more, then a big one that doubled my weekly target. I was on fire. But do you know what happened next? I gave it all back in one stupid, oversized revenge trade. I couldn't believe it. After all the progress, after everything I'd learned, why did I still sabotage myself? Why did I suddenly break rules I'd been faithfully following for weeks? Why did I become reckless, right after proving I could be disciplined? The answer came later that night, in the most unexpected place: my journal. I had written a simple line that stopped me cold. I still don't see myself as a successful trader. It hit me like a freight train, because right there, underneath all the routines, the risk management, the system upgrades, was a core belief that hadn't changed. I still believed I was the kind of person who messes it up, who can't hold on to success, who's good at learning, but bad at keeping. And that's when it clicked. You will always return to the level of your identity. You can have all the rules, all the tools, all the knowledge. But if deep down you don't believe you're someone who wins, you'll find a way to prove yourself right. Because we're not trading the market, we're trading our self-image. Tom Hougaard touches this in Best Loser Wins, but most people miss the deeper implication. He writes, if you want to win like a professional, you have to think like a professional, not just once, but until it becomes who you are. This isn't motivation. This is neurobiology. Your brain is designed to protect your self-image, even if that image is toxic. So when you start acting in ways that conflict with who you believe you are, your subconscious will pull you back through fear, through sabotage, through accidental rule breaking. Let me give you an example. If you've always seen yourself as someone who struggles with money, even when you start making good trades, your brain will correct the imbalance. Because success feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unsafe. You'll unconsciously destroy what you've built just to get back to the identity that feels normal, even if that normal is misery. This is what I call the identity ceiling. It's the invisible limit that governs how much success, control, and peace you allow yourself to have. And unless you raise it, you will keep hitting it over and over, no matter how good your system is. So, how do you change your identity as a trader? Not by faking confidence, not by yelling affirmations into the mirror. You change it by collecting evidence. Every time you follow your rules, you plant a seed. Every time you take a loss with grace, you build trust. Every time you journal your trade honestly, you strengthen your integrity. Over time, these actions become proof. And with enough proof, your identity begins to shift. That's when real transformation happens. When I want to be a disciplined trader becomes, I am a disciplined trader. When I hope I follow my system turns into, I always follow my system because that's who I am. That's not just mindset, that's identity programming. And it works, not instantly, but irreversibly. Here's how I did it. I created a trader code, my personal identity statement. It wasn't about goals or profits, it was about who I needed to become. Example, I am a professional. I take trades with clarity. I don't chase, I don't flinch, I respond. I respect my system, even when it hurts. I repeated this every morning before the market opened, out loud, not as a mantra, but as a contract. And after every trade, I asked one question: did I act in alignment with my identity? If yes, I won, even if the trade was red. If no, I corrected. Slowly, the sabotage faded. This didn't just change my results, it changed my relationship with myself. I stopped measuring success by profit. I started measuring it by congruence, and that was the beginning of real consistency. So if you keep blowing up, if you keep doing the very things you swore you'd stop, if you keep feeling like two people, one who knows what to do and one who ruins it, you don't have a strategy problem. You have an identity problem. Fix that, and the rest will follow. The mirror of pain facing the inner enemy. There's a moment every serious trader faces when you realize the charts are no longer your enemy. It's not the volatility, it's not the news, it's not the algos, it's you. And until you face that, you'll never be free. For me, that moment came in silence. No screens, no trades, just a journal and a chair. I had just given back 2 weeks of gains in a single day. Again, it wasn't even a bad trade setup. It was pure emotional sabotage, a violation of my rules triggered by fear and frustration. That night, I didn't blame the market. I didn't scream at the chart. I turned off all devices and sat down with a blank page. What happened next changed my trading forever. I asked myself the rawest question I could think of. What did I believe in that moment that made me destroy what I built? At first, the answers were surface level. I thought the market would bounce. I didn't want to miss the move. I didn't want to lose my gains. But I kept asking, and deeper answers started coming out. I'm afraid of being wrong. I tie my self-worth to my results. I don't believe I can handle long-term success. And then the hardest one. I don't fully trust myself. That hit like a knife. Because that's when I realized I wasn't fighting the market. I wasn't even fighting fear. I was fighting a fractured relationship with myself. I didn't trust myself to follow through. I didn't believe I could handle pressure without breaking. I didn't feel safe in my own head. And that's when I saw it. Self-sabotage isn't the enemy. It's the messenger. It's your psyche saying something inside you needs healing. That's the part most traders avoid. They try to outsmart pain, outrun fear, out-hustle their demons, but pain will do, and until you face it, it will own you. So I made a decision. I would stop running. I would sit in the pain and listen. The next day, I created a ritual I now call the mirror. Every time I broke a rule, big or small, I didn't just log it. I wrote down what I felt before, during, and after, what I believed about myself in that moment, what part of me was trying to protect me, what I needed to hear instead. It was brutal. Some entries made me cry, some made me ashamed, some made me furious, but all of them made me free. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Trading pain is not punishment, it's feedback. It's a mirror. Every emotional response, every urge to overtrade, to move stops, to jump in too early is your subconscious waving a flag saying there's something unresolved here. Pay attention. And when you do, you start trading not just with skill, but with self-awareness. Let me give you an example. One day, I hesitated on a clear entry, watched the price fly without me. I got angry, jumped into the next setup with no confirmation, and took a full loss. In the past, I'd chalk that up to bad decision-making, but when I ran it through the mirror, I discovered the real pattern. I wasn't afraid of losing. I was afraid of missing out. Because somewhere deep inside, I still equated missing a trade with missing my worth. That FOMO wasn't about money. It was about identity hunger. I felt I had to prove myself. Once I saw that, I could work with it. I wrote a new phrase into my journal. I'm not here to prove, I'm here to perform. That shift alone saved me dozens of bad trades in the months that followed, because I was no longer reacting to fear. I was acting from clarity. Here's the most powerful thing I can tell you. Pain is a portal. When you stop running from it, when you lean into it with honesty, it transforms. it turns into precision, into power, into peace. That's what pro traders have that amateurs don't. Not just strategy, but emotional fluency. They know what fear feels like in their body. They know how to name it, how to move through it without acting on it. They don't suppress it, they integrate it. That's what I started doing, and it changed everything. So if you're struggling with the same mistake on loop, if you keep breaking your own rules despite knowing better, if you feel exhausted, frustrated, and ready to quit, don't look at the chart. Look in the mirror. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? What do I believe about myself that's not true? What would it feel like to trade from trust instead of tension? Then write, cry, shake, be uncomfortable, but don't run. Because the longer you run, the longer the enemy stays in control. In the next part, I'll show you how I rebuilt my system, not just technically, but mentally and emotionally, so it could work under fire, not just on paper. Because process over profit is how real traders are made. Process over profit, a system reborn. After staring into the mirror of pain, after writing down every trigger, every emotional wound, every betrayal of my own rules, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. For the first time in months, the chaos quieted, not because the market changed, but because I changed. And that's when I knew it was time to rebuild. Not just a system, but a relationship with trading that I could trust. Let's be honest. Most traders don't follow systems. They follow outcomes. They say they're systematic, but the moment a trade goes against them, they abandon ship. They judge a strategy by its recent win rate, not by its long-term process. And I was one of them. Until I realized the obvious. If your system only works when you're comfortable, then it's not a system, it's a preference. So I started over. I deleted all my charts, wiped every indicator, closed every tab with top 10 strategies. And I asked one brutal question. What's the simplest setup I can execute with 100% consistency under pressure? Not the most profitable, not the sexiest, not the one with the best RR ratio, just the one I could follow. Because at this point, I didn't need brilliance, I needed obedience. I went back to basics. Price action, volume, structure. One setup, one time frame, one entry rule, one exit rule, that was it. I made it so simple I could explain it to a 12-year-old, because complexity was my excuse. Simplicity was my discipline. But here's the real shift. For every rule I wrote down, I added one emotional checkpoint. Examples. Entry rule, wait for break of structure plus confirmation. Emotional check, am I entering out of clarity or out of FOMO? Stop loss, fixed 1R from entry, no exceptions. Emotional check, well, am I tempted to move it because I feel hopeful? Exit, target or stop, whichever comes first. Emotional check. Am I cutting early out of fear or following plan? This was a mental operating system, not just a technical one, because I wasn't building a trading system. I was building a process I could live inside of. Then I built the daily operating ritual, pre-market, 5 minutes breathwork, 3 affirmations from my trader identity, 1 question, what emotional pattern might sabotage me today? During market, trade only during predefined sessions. Only take setups in checklist. Use journaling triggers after every trade. Post-market, did I follow my system? Did I feel regulated during the trade? What emotion showed up and how did I respond? It felt obsessive at first, but it wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. I was no longer trying to win. I was training to perform, and something magical happened. I started stringing together winning days, not just in P&L, but in behavioral integrity. I began trusting myself again. I started celebrating red trades if I followed the plan. I started seeing wins as neutral events, not highs. I stopped chasing the market and started mastering myself. Here's the truth. The market doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards consistency. It rewards the trader who shows up the same on green days and red days, who treats a $200 loss with the same poise as a $1,000 win, who doesn't get seduced by profit or terrified by drawdown. That's what I was becoming. Not a hero, not a guru, just stable. And in trading, stability is an edge. The funny thing is, my strategy didn't change much from before. Same entries, same targets, but my results changed dramatically because I changed. I was no longer trying to find the perfect system. I was perfecting my relationship with the process. That's what Best Loser Wins really taught me, that freedom in trading doesn't come from being right. It comes from being reliable to yourself. Let me ask you something. If someone followed your system perfectly for the next 6 months, would they be profitable? If yes, then your problem isn't the system. It's your process. It's your nervous system, your habits, your rules under pressure. That's where the edge lives. And the moment you realize that, everything changes, because the goal is no longer making money. The goal is executing flawlessly, and money becomes the byproduct. In the next part, I'll show you how I turned losses into fuel and why becoming anti-fragile was the final unlock to emotional mastery in trading. The cold shower of reality, becoming anti-fragile. You don't truly understand the markets until they break something inside you, not your strategy, not your account, but your expectations, your need for comfort, certainty, control. I used to think trading would get easier, that with enough skill and experience, the emotional roller coaster would calm down. It doesn't. In fact, it gets louder. The stakes grow, the pressure builds, the temptation evolves. That's when I realized the goal isn't to eliminate volatility, the goal is to stop fearing it. That's when I discovered a concept that changed how I approached trading forever: anti-fragility. It comes from Nassim Taleb, and it means this: some things get stronger under pressure. They don't just survive chaos, they feed on it. It's not resilience. Resilience means you recover. Anti-fragile means you improve from stress. And I asked myself, what if I could build a trading mindset that got sharper every time the market tried to break me? Not just endure pain, but learn from it faster, absorb it, grow through it. That became my new obsession, becoming anti-fragile. Here's how I started. Every time I took a loss, instead of saying what went wrong, I asked, what muscle is this moment training in me? Got stopped out? That's training detachment. Got skipped by a perfect entry? That's training patience. Got tempted to revenge trade? That's training emotional awareness, lost on a flawless setup? That's training trust in the long game. Every loss became a repetition in the gym of psychological strength. And just like muscle, emotional resilience grows through resistance. This flipped my entire relationship with red trades. I stopped flinching. I stopped overanalyzing. I stopped personalizing the outcome. Because now, I didn't expect the market to reward me. I expected it to test me. And my only job? Pass the test. Sometimes that meant losing money, but keeping composure. Sometimes it meant missing out, but not chasing. Sometimes it meant sitting through boredom without trying to force something. Every one of those moments was a cold shower, uncomfortable, but cleansing. That's what traders don't understand. They think pain is a sign of failure. But the best traders I've met, they embrace pain like training. They expect setbacks, but they've trained their mind to grow through them. They're not trying to avoid discomfort. They've learned to use it. That's anti-fragility. One specific technique helped me the most: the aftershock journal. After every difficult session, I wrote 3 things. 1, what emotion showed up most today? Fear, boredom, regret, hope. 2, what story did I tell myself in the moment? I can't afford to lose. I missed my chance. I need to make it back. 3, what would an anti-fragile trader do here? Detach, step back, follow process. By doing this repeatedly, I created a library of stress responses and rewired how I met those triggers. Now, when fear hit, I had a response ready. When doubt crept in, I already knew the voice. And over time, those aftershocks stopped shaking me. They became background noise. And here's the beauty of this process: it spills into the rest of your life. I became calmer in traffic, more patient in conversations, less reactive with family. Because the same nervous system you use to trade is the one you use to live. If you train it in the markets, you become stronger everywhere else. Let me ask you something. How do you respond when the market humiliates you? Do you spiral, blame it, hide from it, or do you study it? Do you use it as a mirror, as a teacher, as a sharpening stone? Because that choice is the difference between staying fragile or becoming unshakable. Here's a line I wrote on a sticky note and placed on my monitor. If I'm not growing from this, I'm wasting it. Every red day, every hesitation, every loss is either fuel or fire. You choose what it becomes. Today, when I take a big loss, I still feel it. I still clench my jaw, still want to scream, still feel the fear. But now, I smile because I know the market just handed me a gift. Another chance to get stronger in the only place that matters, inside. In the next part, I'll show you the ultimate paradox in trading, how I learned to love losing, and why mastering the art of loss is the key to sustainable exponential gains. How I learned to love losing. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for every trade that punched me in the face, every stop out, every fake out, every loss that made me question why I even started trading, because now I understand something most traders never will. Winning doesn't make you a great trader, losing does. Let me explain. Early in my journey, I worshipped green days. They were proof I was getting it. Validation, fuel for my ego. Red days, though, they were shame, failure, evidence that something was broken, maybe me. So I did what most do. I avoided loss, chased perfection, tried to eliminate uncertainty. But the more I ran from losing, the more I sabotaged myself when it inevitably showed up. And it always does, because losing is not optional. It's the cost of entry to this game. The turning point came after a trade I followed perfectly. Entry, risk, exit, textbook. It still lost. And for once, I didn't react. No anger, no spiral, no revenge trade. I closed my journal and wrote, "This was a win because I behaved like the trader I'm becoming." That sentence changed everything. From that day on, I stopped grading trades by P&L. I started grading them by process. Did I follow my rules? Was I emotionally neutral? Did I act with integrity under stress? If the answer was yes, I won. Even if the market disagreed. Tom Hougaard writes in Best Loser Wins, "The trader who can lose 40% of the time and still be emotionally stable is more dangerous than the one who wins 90% but crumbles when he doesn't." That hit me like a freight train, because it's not the frequency of your wins that determines your future. It's your ability to stay composed through the losses. Not just tolerate them, but learn from them, welcome them. So I started doing something radical. I treated every loss like a training rep. Each red trade was a weight on the emotional barbell. Want to grow stronger? Lift heavier. So I didn't just track losses, I trained through them. After every stop out, I asked, what did I feel in my body? What did I believe in that moment? What did I want to do emotionally versus what I actually did? Most importantly, did I still follow my plan, even when it hurt? That became the true scorecard. Slowly, I noticed something wild. The more I practiced losing well, the less it bothered me. Not because I liked pain, but because I trusted myself inside it. I wasn't fragile anymore. I was trained. That's the hidden edge no one sees. Not strategy, not indicators, not psychology theory, but behavioral integrity under duress. That's what separates professionals from tourists. Can you lose 5 trades in a row and still take the 6th with full conviction? Not fear, not hesitation, but with trust. That's the test, because the 6th trade might be the one that makes your month. But you'll never find out if your relationship with losing is broken. And here's the paradox. Once I stopped fearing losses, my results improved faster than ever. Because I wasn't trying to protect my P&L anymore, I was protecting my process. I wasn't trading to win, I was trading to execute. And ironically, that's what brought the biggest wins. This shift gave me a new rule. Never let a red day steal a green habit. Bad trades happen. Good behavior must stay, because in the long run, your results are just a mirror of your habits, multiplied by time. That's why most traders plateau. They chase better systems, but ignore the tiny behaviors that compound silently. Cutting winners too early, justifying small rule breaks, letting fear shave 0.3R off every exit. You don't notice it day by day, but the market does. Now, I'll tell you something I wish someone had told me. You don't need to love losing. You need to love what it builds in you. Losing builds clarity, builds trust, builds identity. If you let it. Most traders don't. They waste their losses by hiding from them. Don't do that. Honor every red trade by asking, what did this moment strengthen in me? What pattern did this help me spot? What muscle did this just train? That's how you become bulletproof. These days, when I take a clean, rule-based loss, I nod to myself, not because I'm okay with it, but because I'm prepared for it. I've trained for it. I've journaled through it. I've made peace with it, because I know the best loser always wins. In the next part, I'll take you back to where it all began and explain why that $20,000 loss wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. It was the best investment I ever made. The $20,000 wasn't a loss, it was tuition. I used to look at my account balance with shame. That red $20,000 figure stared at me like a scar I couldn't cover up. It represented every failure, every rule I broke, every moment of weakness. A giant monument to regret, or so I thought. But now, years later, I look at that number with something else entirely. Gratitude, because I finally understand what it really was. That $20,000 wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a defeat. It wasn't a financial mistake. It was tuition. See, most people think of losses as setbacks, but I've come to see them as investments in awareness. And that loss, it taught me more than any webinar, any backtest, any mentor or market analyst ever could. It taught me the one thing you can't fake in trading: emotional truth. Here's what that $20,000 taught me, lesson by brutal lesson. 1. A system is only as strong as the person executing it. I had a working setup, but I couldn't stick to it when fear showed up. That loss showed me knowledge isn't enough. Embodiment is what matters. 2. Hope is not a strategy. That day, I hoped the market would bounce. I hoped it would come back, and in doing so, I handed over control. That loss taught me the moment you hope, you've stopped trading. 3. Discipline is emotional, not intellectual. I knew the rules. I broke them anyway. That loss exposed the truth. Discipline is a nervous system skill, not a mental concept. 4. Avoiding pain creates more pain. By avoiding a small stop loss, I created a massive equity drawdown. That loss taught me short-term discomfort is cheaper than long-term regret. 5. Identity drives outcome. Deep down, I didn't see myself as a consistent trader. That loss made me confront the gap between who I wanted to be and who I really was. Most traders pay for courses. I paid with pain. And that's okay, because pain gets your attention. I've had teachers give me strategies. I've read books that made me smarter, but pain made me honest. And in trading, honesty is the edge no indicator can offer. After that $20,000 loss, I stopped looking for answers. I started building integrity. I stopped asking what works. I started asking, what can I follow, even when it hurts? Because let's be real, what's the point of the perfect system if you abandon it at the first sign of discomfort? That loss gave me clarity. It showed me what not to do. And in doing so, it showed me exactly what to change. Not just in my charts, but in my routines, my mindset, my relationship with uncertainty. If someone told me today, give me $20,000 and I'll teach you how to trade with confidence, stability, and long-term growth, I'd say, where do I wire the money? Because that's exactly what I got. The difference? I didn't pay it to a coach. I paid it to the market with my own ego. And here's the best part. That tuition keeps compounding. Every time I stay calm on a red trade, I'm cashing in on that lesson. Every time I wait for my setup, I'm earning interest on that investment. Every time I end the week flat but proud of how I showed up, I'm proving that the cost was worth it. Because real growth in trading is invisible at first. It happens in who you become. And I became someone I trust. That, to me, is priceless. I used to think my edge would come from knowledge. Now I know, my edge is who I am when things get hard. The $20,000 loss stripped away the fantasy. It made me face the truth, and in doing so, it set me free. So if you're nursing a big loss, if you're carrying shame, if you feel like you've failed beyond repair, let me offer you something. Maybe that wasn't a setback. Maybe that was your tuition too. And maybe now, you're finally ready to start the real journey. Because when you stop resisting the cost of trading, you start earning the return. Not just in dollars, but in discipline, in clarity, in confidence. In the final part of this story, I'll speak directly to you, the trader watching this, wondering if it's too late, wondering if you'll ever break through. And I'll tell you exactly why you already have everything it takes if you're willing to lose like a winner. Final message from Trader. Let me say this straight. If you've made it this far, through the story, through the pain, through the rebuild, you're not just watching a video anymore. You're standing at a threshold, and you have a choice. You can close this tab, go back to chasing setups, tweaking indicators, trying to feel ready. Or you can decide right now that this is the line. The line between the old trader you've been and the trader you're about to become. I'm not here to hype you up. I'm not selling dreams. I've been through hell in this game. I've stared at a $20,000 loss and thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I've broken every rule I said I'd follow. I've felt disgusted with myself. I've wanted to walk away more times than I can count. But I didn't, because something in me, something in you, knows that trading isn't just about money. It's about finding out who you are when no one's watching, when the pressure's on, when the only thing you can trust is your own breath. So here's the truth. You don't need another strategy. You need a new relationship with yourself. You need to trust your word, to show up when you don't feel like it, to journal the ugly stuff, to take red days without revenge, to execute when you're tired, scared, uncertain, and still stay calm. That's trading. Not the screenshots, not the Lambos, not the fake flexes on Twitter. This grind, this quiet work, this internal war. That's what separates amateurs from professionals. And if you're thinking, but I've blown so many accounts, I've broken every rule, I've lost years already, let me stop you right there. So did I. And I'm still here, and so are you, which means it's not over, which means you can change. And it starts with a single decision. You will no longer treat losses as punishments. You will treat them as training reps. You will stop chasing success and start earning it, one disciplined trade at a time. You don't need to be brilliant. You don't need to predict every move. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent, especially when it's hard. You need to build systems you respect and then become someone who never breaks them, not because you feel like it, but because that's who you are now. That's the new edge. That's what I call a professional identity. I can't promise it will be easy. It won't. But I can promise this. If you choose process over ego, discipline over impulse, truth over illusion, you'll not only make money, you'll build something unshakable within yourself. And no drawdown, no news spike, no emotional storm will ever be able to take that from you. So here's what I want you to do. Take a blank page and write this. From this day forward, I don't trade to be right. I trade to be consistent. I don't fear losing. I fear betraying my system. I am no longer a gambler. I am no longer a victim. I am a professional. Then sign it. Not for me, for you. That's your contract. That's your commitment. And the next time you take a loss, the next time the market punches you, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this teaching me? What emotional muscle is this building? What does the next version of me do right now? And act from that version, because he's already inside you. He's just waiting for you to step up. Listen, I don't know what you've been through. I don't know how many times you've failed, but if you're still here, still listening, still fighting, you're already ahead of 90% of traders out there, not because you've figured it all out, but because you haven't quit, and that relentless decision to keep evolving is what creates mastery. So thank you for staying with me, for being honest enough to face your own patterns, for being courageous enough to rebuild. The $20,000 loss I shared with you, that was the day I stopped being a wannabe and started becoming a real trader, not because I made money, but because I finally made peace with myself. And if this video has done anything for you, I hope it gives you that same gift, not hype, not hope, honor. The honor of knowing you're on the right path now, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. Now go, trade like a pro, lose like a winner, and let the market turn you into who you were meant to be. If this spoke to you, hit subscribe, share it with a trader who's on the edge, not for views, but because someone out there needs to hear this today. And if you want more content like this, real, raw, psychology-first trading wisdom, drop a comment and tell me what hit you the hardest. I'll see you on the other side. The day everything clicked, a new kind of profit. There's one day I haven't told you about yet. It wasn't a big win, it wasn't a breakout trade, it wasn't dramatic at all, but it was the moment I knew, deep in my gut, that I had finally crossed the line. Not the line between red and green, but the one between who I was and who I'd become. It was a regular Tuesday. I took a loss early in the session. Nothing huge, 9is1R, clean according to plan. Then another, -0.7R, again, completely valid. Old me, he would have spiraled, started second guessing, looked for revenge setups, tried to force something to make the day back. But instead, I stepped away, took a walk, breathed, reviewed my trades, and I felt nothing but peace. Not I don't care peace, not numbness, but solid ground peace. I knew I had lost money, but I hadn't lost my edge. I hadn't lost me. That's when I realized I'd made more profit that day than in any green day I ever had, because what I gained was sovereignty over my emotions, over my reactions, over the part of me that used to self-destruct. And that, my friend, that's what I now define as true profit. Because think about it. What do you really want from trading? More money? Or what money represents? Freedom, confidence, control, peace of mind. Well, here's the twist. Those things don't come after profit. They come before it. They're not the reward of success. They're the requirement. And that's what clicked that day. The more I trained for internal profit, the more external results followed. Not immediately, but inevitably. Since that moment, I've had green days and red ones, big wins, break-evens, and a few stings. But I've never been afraid again. Not of the market, not of losing, not even of myself. Because I know who I am now, and that's not something price action can take from me. Let me leave you with this. You won't know you've mastered trading the day you double your account. You'll know it the day you lose and still feel powerful. When you can close a red trade with the same calm you close a green one, you're free. When you no longer need the market to validate you, you're dangerous. And when you finally realize that trading is just a tool for inner transformation, you've already won. So here's to that quiet day when it all clicks. Not in the charts, but in you. May you get there faster than I did. But even if you don't, you'll still be becoming the kind of trader who always comes back stronger. And that is the best profit of all.